Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live for the last time this season from Mackey Arena, this time following Purdue's 100-71 win over Rutgers. I am joined for this video. I don't know if you can see them or not, but the beams of light that follow me around everywhere I go because I'm so angelic. I don't know if they're coming through on the video or not. I see them on my screen. Anyway, thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support as always. We appreciate it very much. Purdue needed this game, trying to hold on to the 4 seed to the Big Ten tournament. Here, obviously, need to win your home games. Had a big advantage here over Rutgers, who Purdue blew out at their place several weeks ago, and Purdue got just that. This was something much different, much more violent than Purdue's blowout win in Jersey Mike's Arena some time back. Purdue puts up 100 points on Rutgers. If you ever thought you'd see that after all the 58-56 brass knuckle throwdowns you've seen between these two teams before, I don't know if I did. Purdue scored 50 points in both halves. The last 10 minutes of this game were immaterial. They were simply about rounding out the game, getting everybody out of here, because Purdue just dominated this game to that extent. 18 of 36 from three. Purdue flexing its offensive muscles, reminding everyone, hey, a lot of the story around Purdue this season has been about their defense, both ends of the spectrum, how good they were in January, how not so good they were during the 4-game losing streak. But this is still a program that can do this to people, who can just erupt. This has become, over the years, one of the better offensive programs in college basketball, fielding great offensive teams year after year. And, it's had some ups and downs this season with turnovers. But you saw today what this team is capable of. As I wrote in the analysis right below here, if you're actually reading the stuff I write in addition to watching these videos, thank you if you are. I used to be a writer, and I was pretty good at it. If you're reading the stuff below, what was I going to say before I started making stupid jokes? If you're reading the stuff below, Trey Kaufman-Renn got it. Trey Kaufman-Renn is the Big Ten's leading scorer. At least he was as of this morning. I don't know what his 16-point game will do to hurt his numbers and help him hold off whoever it was this week. Last week it was Dawson Garcia crawling up behind him. This week I think it might be John Tanji from Wisconsin, a fitting adversary, if you will. But Trey Kaufman-Renn is the Big Ten's leading scorer, and he is window dressing in this game because Purdue makes 18 threes on 36 attempts. And keep in mind, these numbers are all warped by the fact that Purdue was up 30 in the last 10 minutes of this game. But how Rutgers lets Fletcher Lawyer get 12 threes off and Braden Smith get 13 threes off, the two of them combined to make 14 of them. But Miles Colvin makes threes, Jakari Harris makes threes. Really, only 5 guys attempted a three, and Purdue made 18 of them. That's pretty wild. But Braden Smith as a scorer, Fletcher Lawyer as a scorer, those guys are capable of doing this on any given night. And it's something that has been kind of there all season long. You've seen a couple of real eruptions from Braden Smith. Fletcher Lawyer has games where he's really, really impactful, but he's not had as many of these eruptions. I don't necessarily think Purdue needs it from him. People want to see everybody scoring, and that's not always reality. But if they're going to leave him open in transition, inexplicably, he needs to be shooting that ball. He's too good. He's too good a shooter. He got a lot of open looks in this game that he will not be getting in March. Please understand that. If you're expecting him to be shooting 12 threes every game from here on out, that is not reality. This Rutgers team has got to be killing poor Steve Pikiell because he has built that program on toughness, on grit, on defense, and this team doesn't guard anybody. I've seen it firsthand twice this year. The numbers are what they are. They're not great, but when you watch them play, it's very different from the numbers even, because Again, how you let Fletcher Lawyer get open the way he got open tonight, how you let Braden Smith just step into so many threes is just incomprehensible, to be honest with you. Now, I'm not saying that to take away from what Purdue did here tonight. I'm saying these guys are great shooters. Fletcher Lawyer might be the best three-point shooter in the Big Ten. He's got to be leading the league now in percentage. The funny thing about three-point percentage leaders, this is going to get me into a rant here that I'm going to end up writing about this week, but the standard for the Big Ten statistical leaderboard, and this might be an NCAA thing too, for all I know. So I'm not throwing the Big Ten under the bus without saying this could be an NCAA standard, not a Big Ten standard. I'll find out before I rain fire on this topic. The standard for the official statistical leaderboards in three-point percentage is 2.5 makes per game. You realize how much that is for college basketball players playing 40-minute games? That's 7.5 points a game. So you can automatically eliminate every scoring guard who averages below 7.5 points per game. That's actually probably not true. I'm actually thinking after I say things instead of thinking before I say things. And it is entirely possible that somebody can make a ton of threes one game, not so many threes the next game, and things would average out a little bit. I need to stop with this weird off-the-rails commentary about NCAA statistics. But 2.5 makes a game is an unreasonable standard for something like this. But Fletcher Lawyer and pretty much everyone else in the Big Ten, when I checked the site last night, there were 5 guys listed, meaning there were only 5 guys who qualified for the leaderboard in three-point field goal percentage. 2 of those guys were right at the 2.5, meaning if they only made 1 in their next game, chances are they would drop off the page entirely. It's unreasonable. It's really absurd. But Fletcher Lawyer doesn't have to worry about that tonight since he made 7 of them, as did Braden Smith. So maybe I'll log onto that page tonight or tomorrow and they'll both be there. I don't know. But Fletcher Lawyer is probably up around 50% now in Big Ten play. Just a great shooter, just a great step-in, spot-up shooter. I see people drawing comparisons between him and Ryan Klein and Carson Edwards and them. They're different shooters. They're very different shooters. Fletcher Lawyer is a step-in shooter. Some of those guys were shoot-off-the-dribble guys. Some of them were shoot-on-the-move guys. Every three-pointer is different. Every type of shooter. There are lots of different types of shooters, and Fletcher Lawyer is as good a spot-up, catch-and-shoot, step-in guy as Purdue's ever had. He's an elite shooter, but not the same thing as a lot of the guys who came before him. But he is a great shooter, and he's a great player that I think hasn't gotten his due ever as part of this really successful core Purdue has had here these last couple of years. He and Braden Smith both get 23 points in this game. Fletcher Lawyer did not turn the ball over. Braden Smith gets his 9 assists. For as much as I'm talking about offense here, the offense was really formidable, but I hear people say formidable. I don't like it. Formidable. It's got to be formidable. There's a couple words that people pronounce differently that drive me nuts. Formidable is one of them. Formidable. Anyway, the offense was really formidable in this game tonight. But what this also comes down to is the fact that Purdue is flipping these games from what they were during the losing streak. Purdue is playing really well in first halves and then not well in second halves. This is flipped. Purdue's played okay in the UCLA and Rutgers games in the first half. Mind you, the Rutgers game, Rutgers had an 8-point possession. So I think that is really important context for Purdue only being up 9 points at halftime. Only 9 points. That's kind of our standard for Purdue these days, which is a backhanded compliment. But Purdue could have been up more. The 8-point possession really stemmed Rutgers' inevitable getting blown out here. That's a really well-crafted sentence right there. But as good as Purdue was offensively, what really turned these games, plural, because I think the UCLA game was largely the case there too, was Purdue doesn't turn the ball over after halftime. I think they only had one turnover in the second half. And consider that 10 of those minutes were garbage time. But when it mattered during Purdue's, that's how I'm going to phrase it, run to open the second half, they didn't turn the ball over. And we've seen time and again, not only this season, but for years now, the correlation between turnovers and Purdue's success or lack thereof. So Purdue taking care of the basketball and Purdue rebounding. This is a Purdue team that has to overachieve on the glass. It does not have natural advantages. I've talked about this all season long. If you haven't retained it by now, I can't help you. But Purdue has to overcome things on the defensive glass for the first time in years because there's no Travion Williams, there's no Caleb Swanigan, there's no Ross-Ade, and I finally remembered to include Travion Williams in this list of big men that I keep running through. My apologies to Travion Williams. I tend to forget about him. Totally unfair. I don't know why that's the case, but he was as good a rebounder as Purdue's ever had. Ross-Ade was the best rebounder in the country. Caleb Swanigan was the best rebounder in the country. Purdue does not have that right now. They have a couple of power forwards playing center and power forward respectively. They need those guys to overachieve. They need them to do it without fouling, which has been an element that has affected Purdue's season. It has probably cost Purdue games. Purdue having to overachieve on the glass and picking up little fouls doing it, I think, has really, really affected Purdue's season. That one little element really could be the difference between Purdue winning a Big Ten regular season title and them not. I'm not overstating that. It has been that big a deal for Purdue, the fouls on the rebounds. But Purdue has really cranked it up in the second half of these last two games with its rebounding effort. You saw what Camden Heide did in the final 10 minutes of the UCLA game. You saw what Caleb Furst did here tonight, finishing with 9 rebounds in his final. I love the dichotomy between first and final. His final game in Mackey Arena, 6 offensive rebounds, 9 total. Just really, really did for Purdue tonight what he's done at his best this season. I think Caleb Furst's relevance to this season has not only lied in him, being ready to play after he was out of the playing rotation last season, but in how he affected this team, because he filled gaps in this team. This was not a perfect, complete Purdue roster coming into this season. Daniel Jacobson's injury in the second game of the season took a huge bite out of that too. And even before Daniel Jacobson was hurt, there were limitations to this roster. A lot of those limitations were gaps that Caleb Furst maybe didn't fill but helped cover up. His defensive versatility, for one thing. His rebounding at times has been really, really critical to this team's success. His effort, his spark, the spark he provided, just spoke to a lot of Purdue's ills. I'm saying that about a kid who's going to be a doctor, so fitting. So Caleb Furst was a huge part of Purdue's success this season, and a reminder to everybody who just looks at points per game to gauge a player's impact that that's a fraction of the story. Now, Furst had his ups and downs in his career. He had his ups and downs this season. But on the whole, I think that he really, really helped Purdue this year when Purdue needed him desperately, and needed him for the first time probably ever in his career. Remember, his freshman year, he was a depth piece. After that, Ross-Ade comes along. Ross-Ade is there 2 years. Purdue doesn't really need much from Caleb Furst. He falls out of the playing rotation when Purdue goes to the Final Four. This year, he really gets his first breathing room on the depth chart post Ross-Ade. And remember, his freshman year, he was playing power forward basically. When Purdue also had Mason Gillis at that position, they had the two centers and Travion Williams and Ross-Ade, if I recall correctly. So there wasn't a whole lot of daylight there either. He just came in for spot minutes here and there, made some really big plays. Could have just accepted his fate after last season and figured he wasn't going to ever get his opportunity where Purdue needed him, where Purdue had to invest in him. Purdue needed to build around him. They're still not doing that. But where Purdue had to push him to be his best self as a basketball player. This is a kid who is going to be a surgeon. What he's going to operate on, I don't know yet. I don't know if he knows yet. He's going to be a hell of a citizen. He's going to be a great Christian. He already is. He's going to be a hell of a husband. And he's just got the world by the you-know-what right now. But sometimes having a complete life outside of basketball, holds a guy back as a basketball player. He never really made that huge jump as a player from one year to the next. And that's okay. I mean, these guys are here to become good citizens, to become productive members of society, to get a great education, to be successful in life. And the fact that that jump never occurred never really vaulted him ahead of somebody. So when Ross-Ade comes along, Ross-Ade cannibalizes a lot of stuff for a lot of people. When Trey Kaufman-Moran, comes out of his redshirt year, that cannibalizes a lot of opportunities for other people. And, First easily could have just said, all right, well, I wasn't playing at the end of my junior year, so why should I be ready to play now? And it was the opposite. I think Purdue's coaches, pushed him harder than they probably ever have before. He's the sort of guy, I don't know if you ever want to yell at, because he's such a good dude, and he's such a squeaky clean kid, and such a wonderful person, to be honest with you, that I don't know if he's the sort of guy you want to really crawl up into, as coaches might say. But I think Purdue really needed him to be his best self defensively, really needed him to rebound, and I think Purdue probably pushed him unlike any way they've ever pushed him before. After the Washington game, first specifically mentioned Paul Lusk as yelling at him a lot. So I think that was probably the answer to the question I'm wording around here. But anyway, situationally, Caleb Furst had a great year for Purdue. It's not over yet, but you have to give him a lot of credit for this team's success this season, for covering up some of the things that would have ailed this team otherwise. And what he's done for Purdue this season has really, really made it credible that he's going to carry that title for a year probably as being Purdue's all-time winningest player, because he was a winning player during his career. He had the best chance ever as a senior to show it. So kudos to him. I'm sure Purdue will miss him next season, but he has really helped make this program into one of the great programs in college basketball these past few years. And it's pretty much all I have to say about this Rutgers game. Purdue scores 100 points on Rutgers. Who ever thought you'd see the day? I thought I would see a 100-point game from Purdue against Rutgers the day I saw an 8-point possession. And I saw them both on the same day. So, what a weird world. So, look, that's what I got. So, from Mackey Arena for the final time this season, this is Brian Neubert for goldenblack.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. Thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support, as always. I will talk to you guys again Friday night from State Farm Center. I keep wanting to call it Assembly Hall. The State Farm Center in Champaign, Illinois, after Purdue finishes out the regular season at Illinois. I will be looking for the Purdue Club Hotel in Champaign. If not there, I'm sure there's one in Danville or Leroy. Is it Leroy or is it Leroy? I think it's French for the Roy. Anyway, I'm sure there's a Purdue Club Hotel somewhere in central Illinois, so perhaps they'll have some vacancy that I can stay at Friday night. Anyway, thanks everybody.